All right, everybody. We are back with the second half of comparing and contrasting informational text and argumentative text. Yesterday, you got the informational text. It wasn't really trying to convince you of anything. It was just informing you of biometrics and how it's used and how long it's been used and what applications that you can use biometrics in. Today's text is going to be a little bit differently based on the title we have here. Biometrics are not better. We can sort of assume that how cool biometrics sounded in the informational text, there are, of course, going to be some drawbacks. And we kind of touched in on that a little bit yesterday when we were trying to point out, what kind of problems would be in certain types of the um, biometrics that are out there. For example, the gait recognition, the system that will allow or deny you access based on the way you walk. Well, what if you're in a wheelchair, or what if you have a disability where you don't walk with a normal stride like most people? What kind of impact would that have on this software or on this system? So those are the kinds of drawbacks that could probably stick in there, but let's see uh, what Mr. Ruben Lohr has to say about biometrics here. First thing that I did, and you can kind of notice here on the screen, is that I went through and I highlighted all of the vocabulary, the bold words, so that they kind of stand out. And then off to the side of each of the page where the vocabulary words are, I highlighted the definitions. So that way it kind of sticks out to me. If I want to look or quickly reference the definition, then I can, it stands out to me. Those of you that are visual, it'll probably stand out to you as well if you highlighted it or circled it or something, so that it's easy for the eye to pick up. It's not going to blend in with everything else. So let's get started. We are going to have the program read it to you, and then we will discuss after the read through.
Biometrics are not better. By Ruben Lohr. Argumentative essay. Background. Passwords are currently the most common way for individuals to identify themselves on their mobile devices or online. Over the past few years, however, biometric identification systems that use people's physical data have started to replace passwords. While some people welcome this trend, others are concerned that it may actually make all of us less safe. About the author. Ruben Lohr has written articles for readers of all ages on a wide variety of topics, ranging from technology and mathematics to literature and culture. He splits his time between New York City and Buenos Aires, Argentina. Biometrics are not better, by Ruben Lohr. New isn't always an improvement. We shouldn't assume that the latest technology is the best option. Using biometrics for security protection is a perfect example. This technology offers an excitingly modern experience, but it comes with unexpected vulnerabilities. In fact, the disadvantages of biometrics far outweigh potential gains. Biometrics include any body measurements or calculations. Since every person is unique, measurements such as fingerprints, eye scans, facial patterns, heartbeats, or even DNA can be used to prove your identity. Exploiting an individual's unrepeatable features seems like a surefire way to prevent the wrong person from gaining access to cell phones, laptops, or other devices. The use of biometrics is booming. One research group estimates that about 650 million smartphones used biometrics in 2015. They predict users will increase to 2 billion by 2020. While companies and consumers rush to take advantage of this new technology, we must be careful that it isn't actually taking advantage of us. Everyone is jumping on the biometrics bandwagon because of the perceived advantages. Users love the fact that the use of biometrics puts an end to confusing passwords. Unfortunately, biometrics can be unreliable. Many body measurements change over time or in specific situations. Fingerprints aren't useful if you cut yourself and need to wear a bandage. Voice recognition software can fail when you have a cold. Dim lighting can greatly reduce the ability of eye scanners to recognize users. Promoters also emphasize that biometrics cannot be stolen as easily as passwords. However, almost any security system can be bypassed by determined crooks. For example, we leave our fingerprints everywhere, on tables, mirrors, cars, and the very smartphones they are increasingly being used to unlock. Thieves can transfer those fingerprints to molds and create models using household materials. Children's modeling clay can create a fake finger that's real enough to fool some biometric sensors. Eye scans are equally vulnerable. In a simple web search, Jan Starbug Chrysler, a security researcher from Chaos Computer Club, found photographs of presidents and world politicians that were detailed enough to trick some iris scanners. These biometric breaches pose a much more serious threat than password theft. What seems like an advantage turns out to be a huge weakness. If your password is hacked, you can easily change it. But if your biometric data is stolen, what are your choices? You can't replace your fingerprints, your eyes, or any of your biometric data. The brightest promise of biometrics is freedom. Nothing could be easier than swiping your finger or blinking your eyes. However, that freedom comes at a heavy price. You could lose fundamental liberties, such as your right to privacy. When a device scans your body measurements, that data could be collected. A password says nothing about who you are. Your fingerprints are much more revealing. With access to your biometric information, companies, or criminals, could easily identify you. Another freedom you might give up is your right to keep your ideas private. According to United States laws, authorities with a warrant can force you to open a phone or computer with a fingerprint or other body scan. However, they can't make you provide mental information, such as a password. What you know is protected under the Fifth Amendment. What you have, including your personal biometrics, isn't. Biometric technology is certainly cool. Using these new scanners can make you feel like you're living in a science fiction movie. But remember that not all movies end happily. We should be very cautious before giving in to this new technology. It may bring with it very unwelcome surprises.
Okay, so that was a pretty long read. Before we get into the questions and stuff, I kind of want to go through and identify the elements of our argumentative text. Because I know as the argumentative text here, when we get to the 6 questions that are on page 273, it's going to be asking, for specific things, and y'all probably already know that too. So it's a good idea to go ahead and identify those. All right. So, first things first. In yesterday's lesson, you learned that in argumentative text, the main idea is called the claim, and you've been learning about the claim for this whole unit. So, first thing to identify then is what is the claim. All right. So if the topic is biometrics are not better, your claim is going to reflect that topic. Okay. But remember, a claim is something that is specific and it is something that is arguable. All right. So do you think that you guys would be able to identify the claim on your own? Okay, let's see. I am going to highlight my claim. I'm going to put it in red. Okay. That way it stands out. It's going to be a different color than the yellow. So, big rule of thumb for most claims is that it's in the first paragraph, and this text is actually no different. It's giving this short introductory paragraph and a pretty small buildup in comparison to others that we have read. But actually here is where your claim is. You could include the introductory phrase, but the claim of the author is that the disadvantages of biometrics far outweigh the potential gains. That is something that reflects how the topic is that biometrics are not better, okay, because it's putting the disadvantages first. And then, the whole being it not better, it is saying that it's far outweighing the potential gains, and then it's on the author then to prove the point with the reasons, and we'll get to the reasons here in a minute. This paragraph here, I don't know if this has really been stressed enough. We've been kind of focusing more on, identifying the claim, identifying the evidence to back up the claim, and all that stuff. Whenever you are arguing something that maybe not a whole lot of people know about, it is a good idea to give background on that topic. Okay, so I'm gonna take purple, make it a little thicker. So this whole paragraph right here, it's not really a reason or anything else. All it is background on what biometrics is, what biometric does, and all of that. So I am not really good with writing with the mouse, but it'll work. And I'm just gonna put BG or background. It's just background info. I'm gonna put that too. That way it's kind of background info. Okay. Excuse my handwriting. Like I said, it is not very easy writing with a mouse. All right, so that is just background information on biometrics. Okay, so if you were a reader and you hadn't read the informational text from yesterday, it's just a brief summation of what biometrics is and what the motivations are for having biometrics in the first place. Okay. So moving right along, I'm gonna have, let's see, green for my reasons. Okay, so now we get to go through and we have to identify the reasons that the author outlines. Okay, and when we were reading through here, or when I was listening and following along, I kind of picked out 3 reasons for the claim of the disadvantages outweighing the gains. So the first reason is in this top paragraph, in paragraph 3. If you, and contrary to what you are usually told, in this case, it's not going to be the topic sentence. It says everyone is jumping on the biometrics bandwagon because of the perceived advantages. Well, okay, this is just kind of a resummation of, why somebody is doing it. It almost sounds like it is a counter argument. Okay. Remember, expert writers are able to be a little bit freer with their rules for where everything is located. But sometimes the counter argument is put in front of the actual argument, and then your reason is then the turn back. So that's what that looks like up here, is what this author did. So then we have to find where exactly then is the turn back of that. And then I see this word unfortunately. It says, unfortunately, biometrics can be unreliable. Okay, that sounds like it is something that is negating these perceived advantages, putting an end to the confusing passwords. So this right here, I just need that. This right here is what I'm identifying as reason number 1. Okay. I'm gonna get my green over here. I don't want it that thick. Okay, so R1. Okay, reason 1. Now I need to look for my second and third reasons. Okay, so where did they go? So skimming through here, all of this is something that goes with reason 1. So I'm going to leave it alone for a little bit. I'll come back to it. Excuse me. Next paragraph, it starts with promoters also emphasize that biometrics cannot be stolen as easily as passwords. All right, well, again, it looks like they're starting this paragraph with another counter argument. So maybe my other reason is in here. Oh, here's a transition word right here. However, almost any security system can be bypassed by determined crooks. So I don't want to go over that vocabulary word. So this whole sentence here, including the vocabulary word, um, this right here would be a second reason. Okay, so R2. Okay, reason number 2. Now, reason number 3 seems to have been separated quite a bit. I noticed that if I come down here to paragraph number 6, all right, this is the brightest promise of biometrics is freedom. Well, there's you another counter argument, it looks like. It says nothing could be easier than swiping your finger or blinking your eyes. However, and then here's that negating transition word again. That freedom comes at a heavy price. Okay, so that then is reason 3. All right, and I'm going to draw a line since it's kind of in the inside the paragraph there. And so we have reason 3. There. All right. So those are my reasons. Okay. So reasons why the disadvantages outweigh the gains. They're unreliable. They can be hacked by determined crooks, and they can be, and the freedom that you have is, there's a cost to that freedom of, swiping a finger or blinking your eyes to unlock anything. All right. So now the next thing you do is you want to identify your evidence. Okay. Identify your evidence that backs it up. Well, there's going to be quite a bit of evidence, it looks like. So this one I'm actually going to circle. I'm going to color coordinate. Green and orange tend to go well together. I'm going to thicken that circle back up so I can. All right. So if you look at reason 1, this whole bottom part of the paragraph is your reasons for, or is your evidence for reason 1. Okay. I'm just going to draw an arrow. It backs up reason 1. It's an ugly arrow, but that's okay. All right. After reason 2, we have this for example, and if I scan through, it all kind of goes through. Okay, so it says almost any security system can be bypassed by determined crooks. Well, if I look at bypass, it can be gotten around or avoided. Okay, so I need to go through it saying, for example, fingerprints are everywhere. Thieves can transfer those fingerprints. Okay, so that's an example of a bypass. Children's modeling clay can create a finger. That's another bypass. Eye scans are vulnerable, and then it gives you a example of how eye scans are vulnerable here. So this whole section here is evidence. Okay, all of that is your evidence for reason number 2. Okay, it's another ugly arrow, but y'all get the point. Y'all get the idea of what I'm doing with that. All right. So we have this little paragraph here that is kind of, little and off to its own. It says these biometric breaches pose a much more serious threat than password theft. What seems like an advantage turns out to be a huge weakness. If your password is hacked, you can easily change it. But if your biometric data is stolen, what are your choices? You can't replace your fingerprints, your eyes, or any of your biometric data. Excuse me. That right there, let me get a different color so that I can, we'll do blue. This right here is your bridge, okay? It is bridging and it is connecting your evidence and your reasons all back with your claim, okay? So your bridge is taking all of this and connecting it, oh, there, it's connecting it all the way over here. You see how how that bridge works? It's taking all of this and connecting it to the claim. Let me bring back my, what was I on? I had orange. I had orange. There we go. All right. So, but that bridge is only connecting those two reasons. The next reason is saying that freedom comes at a heavy price. It says you could lose fundamental liberties such as your right to privacy. Data can be collected. It says nothing about who you are. Fingerprints are more revealing. Access to your biometric information. Companies or criminals that may be working for those companies could easily identify you. So all of that is up here. And then it talks about another freedom. So really all of this goes in with that freedom comes at a heavy price. So this particular reason has a lot of examples and evidence that can be attributed to it. So I am going to go all the way, cut across back here. All of this. All of that is evidence for your reason 3. Okay. Ooh, forgot my ugly arrow. There we go. And then you have your conclusion down here. All right. So it's pretty colorful, but y'all can kind of see how this all works in. Okay. So now, get rid of those. Scrolling down, you have these next 2 pages of the packet. You have these 6 questions. Personal connections, you have, do you think most people view biometrics as cool or scary? What do you think about this topic and explain? So this is subjective to you. So after reading, this argumentative text, what do you think about it now? Okay. Um, do you still think it's neat and cool and something out of a sci-fi movie, something that should be kept around, or do you think it is something to be cautious, really cautious of? Okay, and then you have to explain why you feel that way. Number 2, your reading check. There's 2 parts to that question. What do supporters of biometric security like about technology? Okay, so you need to go back up into this text and you need to find those advantages, because that's what like means. It's an advantage. It's a good thing about the biometrics. And that's what you're going to be putting under A. However many you find, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 10. I mean, you can put however many you need in there to answer the question and make sure you understand it. And then part B of number 2 is cite 2 examples of physical changes that might keep biometric identification from working properly. So when it says cite, okay, there's a lot of people that are having some issues with that word. Citing means you are taking whatever it says in the text, okay? It's directly from here. It's not from, Google. It's not from, from Siri, it's not from Alexa. You are taking evidence and what it says somewhere in this text about physical changes that might keep biometric identification from working properly. That's what you need to be looking for, okay? And you need 2 of those, all right? So you need 2 examples of that right here. Those of you that write big and this little bitty space is not going to be enough to put answers in, you can use the margins, or you can get a sheet of notebook paper and use notebook paper. You guys either have some with you or you know where it is located in your learning location, okay? Notebook paper, printer paper, whatever kind of paper that you need to use. Excuse me. Number 3, strategy, synthesize information. In what ways did this article create a new understanding of this topic for you? Cite one example. Okay, so a new understanding. So before you read this article, you had a basic knowledge of biometrics. After reading this article, what is something new that you've realized or learned or something or about this topic, and what evidence or what text evidence gave you that uh, understanding? Okay, that's what you're going to be putting here. Number 4, analyze. Is a cite 2 kinds of reliability problems the author feels biometric security systems create. Again, that's that word cite. It's out of this text. Okay, you are coming back up into this text. You are finding 2 kinds of reliability problems that biometric security systems create, and you are writing them here. If you need to, you know, after you write it down, you can put off to the side which paragraph you got that information out of. That's one way you can say, okay, this is the issues that the author faced, and it's in paragraph, oh, I don't know, paragraph 3, if it's even in there. So, I mean, that's what you have to determine what paragraph it's in. But that's an example of what you can use. 5, again, there's 2 parts to this question. We have paraphrase. Y'all should be paraphrasing experts after your practice with it in both your reading and ELA classes. It says, in your own words, state the 2 types of freedom the author says biometrics threaten. Stay true to the author's meaning and logic. Okay, so that basically means don't go off on a rail in a paranoia rant to prove a point with hyperbole and fallacies and stuff like that. Stay to the point, to the meaning of the text, and keep your arguments and your evidence logical. So there's 2 types of freedom that the author says biometrics threaten. You need to identify them and paraphrase those. And then part B of that question is you're taking a position of the 2 uh, freedoms, which do you think is more important, and explain your thinking. So basically you're making an argument over the argument or over the evidence of the argument. Which of these 2 freedoms that you've identified, which one is the most important one? All right. And then again, explain your thinking, because it's not enough just to be right or not enough just to say an answer anymore. You have to explain your thinking. You have to justify your logic. All right. And then the last one, number 6, again, there's 2 parts to it. We have speculate. What might the author say to people who rush to embrace any new technology, and explain. So again, if you're speculating, it's a educated guess based on evidence that you have. So based on what the author has written over biometrics, what do you think this author is going to say to people who rush to embrace any new technology? And I mean anything. Say biometrics eventually evolves into cybernetics. where, you know, body parts are being replaced by mechanical arms and such, like they are already. Um, uh, Artificial intelligence, things like that. What do you think this author would say? And then part B is analyzing what attitude toward technology in general does the author express in this essay. Cite at least 2 details from the essay that support your response. So this question is asking for you to analyze mood and tone. What keywords or key phrases or overall feeling of the text uh, does this feel like to you? Does it feel energetic? Does it feel skeptic? Does it feel paranoid? You know, what mood or feeling do you get from this text? Okay. And then you have to justify that by citing, okay, because the author states this in such and such paragraph, uh, it gives me a feeling that the author has this sort of attitude toward this technology or toward biometrics. Okay, so that's what that part of the question is asking you for. And then you need 2 details. So, you know, you're going to have 1 detail and then you're going to have another detail that backs up that attitude also. Um, this little sticky note down here with the essential question on it. Um, excuse me. It's just something for you to think about because that's our essential question for the unit. But you don't have to like write an answer down here or something. It's just something for you to think about. And then just as in the beginning of yesterday's informational text, there is a little closeout basically over the genre and the text elements for an argumentative text. All right, so we have claim and organizational pattern. In an argument, the claim is the author's position, the idea he or she wants the audience or readers to accept. As an author builds an argument, he or she takes the audience into account and guides them through his or her thinking. The author considers what the readers may or may not know and explains unfamiliar words or ideas. That's that background that background paragraph. Okay, that's this. All right. So, you know, if you want to, you can put a little check mark. They got that. Okay, or you can write like that was paragraph 2. Okay, it gives reasons that connect to the reader's beliefs or values. Well, if you look at the reasons, there are probably some reasons in here that will connect to the, you know, the audience's value system. All right. Uses organizational patterns or structures that help readers follow the logic. For example, the author often presents the claim at the beginning, then uses a logical pattern such as cause and effect or advantage disadvantages that readers can recognize. Okay. And then you have a little activity down here. You need to analyze as what is the author's claim in the text, cite 2 different pieces of evidence he uses to support that claim. Well, remember at the beginning of the text where I said there's going to be some exercises that have you ask this? It's a good idea that we already went ahead and notated all of that in the text because now you know exactly where everything is located. Okay. And I included kind of this outside of here so that those of you that don't have multiple colors, you're able to you're at least able to identify the reasons versus the evidence. Okay, so that's why I put the little R2, R1, R3, the notes down here. That's why I did that. For those, you know, I've got multiple colors, so I kind of have an advantage over that. But if you do not have multiple colors, then the writing it out also works also. But you know that that helps you with that answer. So number 2, it says in this essay, the author describes several advantages to biometrics and then shows how each one is actually a disadvantage. Use the chart to explain the disadvantage he sees for each item and list the reasons and the evidence he uses to support his views. Okay, well, again, we've kind of already looked at that. So since your reasons are pretty much highlighted, you can find easily each of these advantages that they have, the actual disadvantage, which is your reasons, and then your supporting reasons and evidence, which is what is circled here in orange. Okay, and these little boxes are tiny, so you'll probably have to paraphrase it, write smaller, or again, get a sheet of notebook paper. Or if you have the capability to do it, you can put a text box over it. Number 3 is you're analyzing again. What audience do you think the author is trying to reach? Software engineers, politicians, or other decision makers, the general public, or another group? Okay, explain your thinking, citing details from the essay. We did not really identify an audience out of here. So, what do you think? Okay, so they gave us these 4 options. We have software engineers. Are software engineers really going to want to hear all of this stuff that is against something that is technological that they probably designed? Probably not. I mean, it's probably a good idea if they hear it, but that's probably not who they're targeting. So those are the kinds of questions you have to ask yourself. So then you're going to the next one, politicians or other decision makers. Look at the vocabulary that they use. Look at how in depth they went into the background information. Look at um, how they describe each uh, piece of evidence that backs up their reasons. How do they describe it? What words do they use? It'll probably then kind of guide you to uh, which group or which audience that the author is trying to reach. And then again, you are explaining your thinking by taking evidence from the text. Such and such phrasing here in this paragraph points to maybe them going to this particular audience. Okay. And then last is evaluate. Do you think advantage disadvantage organization is an effective way to present an argument? Explain. Again, you are citing details from this essay as examples. All right. So that is what you're looking for. You will need to identify your text structure. Okay. Is it cause and effect? Is it advantage, disadvantage? Which one is it? Because it wasn't really clear over here. They gave us 2, but it didn't really say this is the text structure. So which text structure do you think it is? And then, kind of evaluate, was it an effective method of delivery for this argument? All right. Excuse me. Once you get all of that done, you will need to hang on to these papers so that you can complete them, complete the entire compare and contrast exercise with tomorrow's lesson, which we will get into in tomorrow's video. All right. Y'all have a good one, and I can't wait to see what answers you come up with on your own.